Imagine this. You spend years, literally years of your life, meticulously crafting a lush, vibrant fantasy universe. You're mapping out massive continents, you're designing these super intricate magic systems, establishing complex political factions that span decades of deep lore, and breathing life into magnificent multidimensional characters. It's your masterpiece. And then you intentionally kill off your absolute best, most complex villain just to wrap up the series quickly for an easy paycheck. Ouch, right? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today we are unraveling a completely wild narrative where a creator's careless writing comes back to literally haunt him. We are diving deep into the story of Manhwa, an author who wrote a pretty garbage ending to his wildly popular novel, orchestrating the death of his greatest villain, Arendelle, at the hands of the overpowered protagonist. But just as the final words are typed out on his keyboard, a strange burst of dark energy pulls our author right through the void. He doesn't wake up as the heroic swordsman. He doesn't wake up as a safe, wealthy bystander in a tavern somewhere. No, he wakes up inside the body of the very villain he just doomed to die.
So I really want to pose a serious question to you. What would you do if you woke up as the doomed villain? Because let's be clear, this isn't just one of those fun power fantasies where you get to effortlessly rule the world and laugh menacingly. For our author, who is now inhabiting the body of the red-haired, fox-eyed villain known as Adele, the stakes are immediate, they are visceral, and they are terrifying. He remembers his own plot perfectly, right down to the exact timeline. The half-demon arson family has recently fallen, and Adele is their last surviving descendant. But here is the real kicker, the absolute horror of his situation. Adele is scheduled to be violently assassinated by the elite knights of the 6 major families in just a few days. The ticking clock has already started. The author is completely trapped in a life-or-death countdown created entirely by his own keystrokes. He has to somehow survive the very plot holes, lethal magic systems, and overpowered heroes that he explicitly designed to be utterly unbeatable.
Chapter 1. Reborn as the Doomed Villain.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the sheer panic of transmigration sets in instantly. Adele looks in the mirror and realizes the terrifying reality of his situation. He's not just a bad guy, he's a bad guy whose tragic backstory and imminent death were written strictly to make the good guys look better. It's a rough realization. He tries to activate his status window, hoping against hope for some sort of author-level cheat code to bail him out. But the reality of his own world-building hits him like a freight train. When he gets a read on his starting stats, the panic truly sets in. The gap in power is just massive. He has a chaotic attribute, a talent called Swap, and a dark attribute of Killing Intent. Sounds edgy, sure, but his mana control is practically 0, sitting at a pathetic 341. Let's put that into perspective. In the world he wrote, the protagonists have special, god-tier abilities, divine blessings, and literal oceans of limitless mana. No matter how incredibly cool the villains were on the page, our author never ever intended for them to actually defeat the heroes. Now, stuck in Adele's fragile body, with a laughable 341 mana and absolutely 0 control over his dark abilities, he realizes he is fundamentally outmatched by the very universe he authored. It's the ultimate terrifying irony.
But just as despair threatens to completely take over, he notices a blank piece of paper resting on his bed. This paper had appeared right before he transmigrated, bearing a simple, mysterious message. This is a gift. Make a request when you need it. Now, this magical, transaction-based cheat paper becomes his absolute lifeline in a world designed to kill him. Think of it as essentially an omniscient search engine connected directly to the fabric of the universe, but it demands a heavy price for high-tier information. When he frantically asks how to return to the real world, the paper bluntly replies, impossible. So recognizing that there is no going back, that this is his life now, he shifts his gears to pure, unadulterated survival. He asks how to use Adele's mana and innate attributes. Because it's a basic query, the paper actually grants it for free, instantly downloading the comprehension of his dark attributes and his absolutely crucial swap ability, which is the power to instantly trade places with any object within 20 meters. And he needs to master it immediately, because the heavy ironclad boots of his executioners are literally already marching down the hall.
So that leads us right into Chapter 2, Escaping to the Demon Realm.
Picture this, high-stakes survival thriller. Count Leon of the Peltz Knights, this towering, battle-hardened man radiating an absolutely suffocating killing intent, barges into Adele's room expecting an easy, routine execution. But Adele, armed with his newly unlocked swap ability, isn't going down without a fight. When a Vanguard soldier charges, Adele instantly swaps places, dodging the lethal blade by a millimeter, and immediately goes on the run.
He knows with absolute certainty that he can't win a direct fight with his pathetic mana pool, so his only option is to flee human territory entirely and seek refuge with the sworn enemy. It's a frantic, desperate run. He bolts from the burning Arson state and dives deep into the treacherous Arson forest, with Count Lyon's elite, heavily armed soldiers in hot pursuit. And Lyon is no joke. His hearing is as sharp as a bloodhound's, and the Knight Commander is literally devastating the ancient forest, shattering massive trees with his sword aura just to flush Adele out. Adele is completely beaten up. His muscles are tearing from the physical toll of continuous swapping. He's coughing up blood. It's a mess. But using his magical paper, he manages to locate a hidden, ancient portal to the demon realm. Just as Leon launches a massive splintered tree trunk to crush him into the dirt, Adele activates the portal. And in a final act of pure defiance, he gives his would-be executioner a cheeky little wave that drives the proud knight absolutely insane with rage and vanishes into the void. He literally dodges death by a fraction of a second.
Chapter 3. Forging a Demonic Pact.
Now, you would think escaping the humans means he's finally safe, right? Well, our author's luck is just terrible. He wakes up from the portal sickness and accidentally stumbles directly into a high-level artificial dungeon. This isn't just any damp, dark cave. It's a highly classified secret testing ground created by a ruling demon clan. The place is rigged with lethal red energy barriers, towering stone guardians, and giant monsters that could snap him in half without a second thought. But using his author wits and his swap ability, he manages to manipulate the dungeon's internal mechanics. He creatively swaps places with falling rocks and a deadly dungeon wolf to bypass the impenetrable barriers, ultimately finding himself in the massive boss room, facing a terrifying Death Knight. Using his very last drop of energy, Adele manages to warp the Death Knight out of the room entirely, leaving him utterly alone with the glowing treasure chest, and inside, the prideful eye. This is an incredible, legendary artifact that grants extreme dynamic visual acuity, allowing the user to perfectly track hyperfast movements that normal eyes simply cannot perceive. It's a game changer. But here is the massive, undeniable irony. This was a carefully curated reward explicitly meant for Renee, the youngest daughter of the Bear Clan, who was supposed to clear this dungeon to prove our worth. By touching it, the artifact violently fuses with him, carving its magic right into his retinas. It massively increases his power, but simultaneously marks him for a brutal death if he's caught stealing it. So when Renee actually enters the boss room mere moments later, Adele has to frantically bluff his way out to save his life, bowing deeply and claiming he was secretly sent by her clan to be her loyal hidden bodyguard. Talk about thinking on your feet.
Let's break down the incredibly dangerous, cutthroat political landscape he has just bluffed his way into. On one side, we have Renee, the undeniable combat genius of the Bear Clan. She is deeply traumatized by humans and possesses a burning hunger for revenge. On the other side is Cree, the terrifying, towering patriarch of the family who rules with absolute, unquestioned authority. And guess what? Cree doesn't entirely buy Adele's convenient little story. In a dark, genuinely horrifying encounter, Cree suppresses Adele with overwhelming, crushing demonic energy. He systematically tortures him, breaking him down physically, and then violently forces a squirming, living magical parasite down Adele's throat to ensure his absolute, unquestioning loyalty. The choking sensation, the metallic taste of blood, the feeling of the creature attaching to his insides, it is a brutal, visceral reminder of the unforgiving food chain in the demon realm. You do not mess with the patriarch. Fortunately, our author's meta-knowledge is his greatest weapon. He knows exactly how this parasite functions. Later, in secret, he manages to painstakingly extract the parasite, keeping it alive in a jar with daily drops of his own blood. This brilliant piece of deception ensures Cree genuinely thinks Adele is still completely under his control, buying our author the precious time he so desperately needs.
Now, what's really interesting about this next part is the sheer grit it takes to pull off his massive gamble. To actually survive in his fake role as a bodyguard to a combat genius, he boldly requests a mana cultivation technique directly from Cree. Cree, who is mostly just amused by the half-demon's audacity, laughingly gives him a corrupted, mind-breaking chant. It's a chant explicitly meant to forcefully communicate with the ancient demon god of pride, a process that usually leaves the user completely brain-dead. It's basically a death sentence disguised as a gift. But against all odds, Adele actually connects with the demon god. The colossal entity peers into Adele's soul, recognizes a deeply shared chaotic nature and an unyielding will to survive, and bestows a dark, permanent mark upon him. Thanks to this terrifying demonic pact and his innate traits of obsession and focus, Adele's mana pool completely skyrockets. I'm talking a massive jump. He goes from that pitiful, laughable 341 mana to over 3.4 million in just a single month. He transforms from a fragile, easily breakable weakling into a legitimate mid-tier demonic powerhouse, completely shifting the fundamental odds of his survival.
Which perfectly sets the stage for Chapter 4, Surviving Satan Academy.
With his new power, Kree orders Renee to enroll in the Demon Realm's absolute deadliest school, and Adele goes with her as her sworn guard. Now, this isn't your typical whimsical magical high school where students learn to levitate feathers. Oh no! Satan Academy is a brutal, unforgiving, gothic fortress deliberately designed to forge demons capable of slaughtering the greatest human heroes. The entrance exams alone are designed to weed out and kill the weak, and the student body is entirely comprised of apex predators who view a half-breed like Adele as nothing more than dirt meant to be stepped on. Just to give you an idea of the massive political and physical threats surrounding our protagonist, we have the heirs of the 7 deadly sins running the show. You have Renee representing pride for the bears, you've got the monstrous Samuel of gluttony, the cunning Bolton of envy, prone of lust, and most terrifyingly, Diana of wrath. Adele immediately recognizes Diana because in the lore he wrote, she is destined to become the future ultimate villain, the Demon King herself, whose power threatens the entire world. Every single one of these students is a monstrous powerhouse with massive, fragile egos and lethal skills. Adele is suddenly swimming in a shark tank where a single wrong glance, a single misplaced word could result in a horrifying fight to the death.
And the school doesn't waste any time. Before they can even unpack their bags, the very first trial begins. The massive, heavy iron doors of the Grand Hall slam shut, locking everyone in. Without warning, Principal Lucian unleashes a blinding, torturous aura of pure madness that crashes over the entire student body like a tidal wave. This test is specifically designed to simulate and measure who can withstand grueling interrogation and psychic torture by top-tier human heroes. It is brutal. Strong, proud demon students are literally collapsing to the floor, writhing in unimaginable pain, foaming at the mouth, and completely losing their minds. And frankly, Adele's newly acquired millions of mana simply aren't enough to stop this kind of high-level mental invasion. To survive, he has to reach deep, deep down into the darkest, most terrifying part of his character's fundamental setting. He forcefully unleashes his own raw, cold, serial killer-level killing intent to violently push back against the principal's aura. The sheer density of his murderous intent is so chilling, so intense, that the academy instructors actually flinch and almost draw their swords on him, instantly marking him as a highly dangerous, high-profile anomaly right out of the gate.
If that wasn't bad enough, the brutal second entrance exam throws Adele's ragtag, randomly assigned team directly against a highly advanced magical simulation of humanity's absolute strongest hero, the Sword Saint. To give you an idea of the stakes here, in the lore of this universe, the real Sword Saint can level mountains with a single swing. Even at just 10% of his actual power, this simulation is terrifyingly fast, casually one-shotting entire teams of elite demons. When his team falters, Adele calmly steps up to lead. Here is his playbook. Step 1. He flawlessly relies on his heavily armored teammate to act as a meat shield, enduring the brutal, bone-shattering shockwaves of the simulated sword strikes. Step 2. The exact microsecond an opening appears, Adele uses his upgraded swap ability to teleport directly in front of the Sword Saint, narrowly dodging a lethal knee strike that would have completely caved his chest in. And Step 3. He unleashes his dark attribute, instantly blanketing the entire training space in absolute suffocating darkness, trapping the simulation in a blinding, inescapable vortex of continuous blade strikes.
I will defeat him with everything I have. That is the unyielding mindset of a creator fighting his own creation. Adele doesn't hold anything back. He perfectly exploits the simulation's blind spots and uses his intimate meta-knowledge of the Sword Saint's attack patterns to orchestrate a flawless, devastating counterattack. It's a masterclass in exploiting game mechanics. When the swirling black vortex finally dissipates, the mighty Sword Saint simulation is on the floor, glitching into nothingness, and Adele remains standing, breathing heavily, but victorious. The entire academy, from the instructors to the sneering nobles, is absolutely stunned into a pin-drop silence. A mere half-breed just systematically, violently dismantled a legendary simulation that absolutely terrified the elite demonaires. With this single, highly calculated victory, Adele unquestionably secures his spot in the prestigious Class A, right alongside the heirs of the 7 deadly sins.
So the crucial point here is that after completely dominating the exams, the top-tier students are granted rare access to the Academy's legendary armory, but they are explicitly told a very strict rule: they can only choose one single weapon. Just one. It's a psychological test of focus, strategy, and self-awareness. While the other prideful students are getting completely distracted by giant, flashy broadswords and incredibly destructive magical staffs, Adele knows exactly what he needs to perfectly complement his unique stealth and assassination abilities. He completely ignores the shiny legendary tier items and selects the Darkness Fang. It's a highly specific, unassuming dagger forged from pure demon world black iron. But Adele knows its secret. It actively converts ambient darkness directly into pure mana, radically increasing the user's speed and lethality while hiding in the shadows. He is systematically, intelligently building a toolkit meant to survive the terrifying power scaling of the very story he authored.
Chapter 5. The Midterm Invasion begins.
We transition now to the final act of this explainer, where the stakes astronomically escalate, from simply surviving a brutal high school to surviving an actual full-scale war. It's time for the midterm invasion. The demons aren't just sitting at desks taking written tests. The practical exam requires the student leaders to select a target in the human realm and physically take the fight to them. It's a massive, chaotic event that Adele knows all too well from writing his novel. He knows that if they blindly attack the heavily fortified human capital or the main military bases, the overpowered human protagonists will effortlessly wipe out his demon classmates and him along with them. To avoid an immediate, localized slaughter, Adele boldly chooses a very specific, seemingly insane target for Class A, the Imperial Academy of the Sky Island. This location is the absolute pinnacle of human magic and technology. It is a majestic, floating stronghold nestled among the clouds, protected by a network of defensive runes and a barrier so unimaginably powerful that not even ancient dragons can break through it. The other demon students are in absolute awe and terror of its scale. But Adele isn't planning a suicidal frontal assault on an impenetrable floating island. No way! He's planning a highly surgical, deeply calculated strike based purely on the hidden lore he holds in his head.
Think about his overarching, brilliant plan here. He remembers a highly specific plot point. A human first-year class is scheduled to leave the safety of the Sky Island and head to a specific artificial, secret realm on the ground for their own field trip. Adele's strategy is flawless. First, they will covertly enter the secret realm ahead of the humans and blend into the environment. Second, they will simply wait in the shadows for the human students to trigger all the magical traps and fight the resident monsters, completely exhausting their mana and physical stamina. Let them do the hard work, right? And third, while the human students are entirely distracted and depleted, Adele will personally assassinate the high-level human instructor overseeing the trip, seizing a precious, ultra-rare spirit herb in the chaos. He is expertly turning the human's own carefully controlled training ground into an inescapable death trap.
And this brilliantly illustrates his precise tactical mindset. When you break down the threat levels, Adele knows the environmental traps are completely negligible, barely a 10% threat, because he literally knows exactly where every single one is placed. He actively avoids engaging the human protagonists, a 20% threat, directly because their plot armor is simply too thick and unpredictable to risk a fight. You don't mess with main characters. Instead, he completely isolates the human instructors who represent the massive 70% threat level. Specifically, he targets a high-ranking fifth circle human mage instructor. By taking out the strongest protector while they are separated from the main human military force, Adele ensures the survival of his demon classmates while simultaneously securing the magical loot he desperately needs to keep aggressively growing his own power level. It's a win-win for him.
Let that sink in for a moment, because his mindset tells you absolutely everything about why Adele is so uniquely dangerous in this universe. He says, I know every path here without triggering any traps. Adele's ultimate cheat code isn't his 3.4 million mana pool. It's not the terrifying demonic pact he made with the god of pride, and it's not his magical black iron dagger. His single greatest weapon is his absolute meta-knowledge. He is the literal architect of this universe. He knows the geography of every continent, he knows the hidden item drops in every dungeon, he knows the exact elemental weaknesses of the monsters, and perhaps most importantly, he knows the psychological blind spots and traumas of the human heroes. While the other powerful demons rely purely on brute force, raw anger, and destructive magic, Adele relies on absolute, godlike, authorial foresight to completely manipulate the battlefield before the fight even officially starts. He is essentially playing a high-stakes game of 4D chess with the very lore he invented.
Which brings us to the ultimate lingering question of this entire journey. We've seen him outsmart ancient dungeon bosses, survive torturous mind-breaking academy trials, and brilliantly scheme his way into heavily guarded human territory. But when the author officially becomes the villain, can he truly survive the golden heroes he originally destined to win? Can his deep meta-knowledge truly overcome the literal universe-bending power of plot armor? It's the ultimate paradox. Every single step Adele takes, every breath he draws, significantly alters the fragile timeline he wrote, creating terrifying, massive new variables he can no longer perfectly predict.
He may know the original map, but the characters are starting to move on their own, growing beyond the confines of his original script. This escalating irony makes his journey incredibly fascinating and completely unpredictable. Keep this crucial question in mind, because the real, blood-soaked battle against his own creations is only just beginning. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next deep dive.